My first question will stop you because there's no first question. You only have one question. So proceed, Deputy Speaker. One question. So proceed, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you for that guidance.
10, as they say, if it's Mbui, you are number 1. If it is Bai, you are number 2, so that when you start, we just say 1, 2, up to 10.
Okay.
Then the minister responds, then we take the next.
So you're 1, you're 2, last Honorable Casiero. We're going to go.
Those are 9. Take one more.
Okay, one more. So you're number 10.
So
10.
Honorable members, order. Everybody will have an opportunity. So let's be orderly and listen. So Robert Mbui, when you stand, say your name because the names have not been recorded. Then up to number 10, the minister responds, then we take the second round.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Robert Mbui, MP Kadhiani. CS, my issue is about the cost of education, cost of managing education in Kenya. Because it's important, we must know exactly what does it cost for us to educate a child in school in Kenya today. And I'm asking this because you've just given us your capitation, amounts. And a grade 6 child has a capitation of 1,420 based on what you gave us here. Yet a grade 7
You're starting
child,
to answer your own question. You've asked him what...
I'm giving him a question. Please allow me. Okay. Please allow me.
No, because you've asked him the question, now you're answering the question. But proceed.
Thank you, Madam, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. So my question is about the cost of education. And please allow me to explain my question so that you can know exactly where I'm coming from. Now, in grade 6, a child's capitation is 1,420 shillings. But a grade 7 child, just immediately when they cross to grade 7, the cost in terms of capitation is 15,042 shillings. Can you explain that huge difference? What makes a child of grade 7 require so much more than one of grade 6? Yet they are actually in the same institution. And Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, I have just one comment, and this is a comment about how the Ministry of Education has been interfacing with the national...
Order, members, order, please. I'm interested in hearing what you are asking and what the answers shall be. Try and constrain yourselves from animated conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, my comment is about the mess we find ourselves in the implementation of the CBE. And I want to venture and say that one of the reasons that you need to deal with is how you relate with the National Assembly. Because the law is very clear that you cannot implement certain policies without reference to the National Assembly. Maybe some of the problems you're going through would not actually be a challenge had these proposals been brought to the Assembly so that we deal with them as regulations. That way would have given you a better way of handling these things as opposed to doing it in your office, because your ministry is known to be one of the most notorious in passing regulations in the form of circulars, in the form of, I don't know what opinions and communiques from your office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Number 2, you may proceed. And Waziri, you can also have some questions taken by your team if you want to transfer some of them, but you can note them all down. Proceed, Honorable Baya.
Thank you, Waziri, for the presentation, but I want to ask this question, and my question will be on equity and equality and access to educational places. And I want to say this. We see a huge inequality and inequality gaps. I'll give you one example. I have a national school, or a C1 school in my constituency called Bahari Girls. It has a deficit of 26 teachers. 26 BOM teachers are employed by the and this is a C1 or national school, the deficit in, for example, the region of Coast is almost 50% of teachers that are in the establishment are not available, while other regions have almost 90%. This in itself creates an inequality both at the school level and also at the national level in terms of resource allocation. Even when populations versus the populations of other areas are almost the same. But you'll find, and I'll use this crude example, you'll find, for example, a place in Central has 10% deficit of teachers. Coast has 60% deficit in terms of teachers. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the same thing, Honorable, when it comes to places of education, there are regions in this country that were blessed with schools earlier than other regions, where the Europeans went there, built very nice schools and all that. Now they want to charge school fees at 500. While other regions are still struggling to put up places for education, infrastructure. But again, government comes in and still allocates resources, more resources to those regions than the regions that have, for a long time, remained underserved. So we have underserved regions in this country that continue to be underserved, and other regions that were properly served that continue to be even more properly served. This creates inequality in this country. And when we are in this space as leaders, Honorable Speaker, we have a great opportunity to change the story, the narrative, so that the people in other regions, you see, Honorable Speaker, it comes back to when these people are not going to school properly and getting good grades, others are getting grades, they get the better jobs all the time, while the other regions continue to get the lower jobs, Honorable Speaker. So what will you do as minister?
Point made.
I just want to ask the question. What will you do as minister to equal the imbalance that we have in this country in terms of education and continuing to subdue other places and appraise other places? What will you do? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Bashir. You're next.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable CS for the presentation. I ride on the same that Honorable Brian Owen has just said. It's about school infrastructure. I've observed, I've been around for a while, that the infrastructure funds that you allocate to schools by your ministry is heavily skewed. I think you have the issue of, in quotes, high potential areas, low potential areas, even in education. In my area, and especially in the north, you have left issues of infrastructure entirely to CDF, while other regions, you complement them with the infrastructure funds. Now, you have talked about 1,600 laboratories in 1,450 schools. Where is the list? Why don't you publish that list in your website so that we see which schools are benefiting? Why is it a secret? And from which areas? So my question is, provide us with a list of these laboratories plus the 8 years funding that you have done to each of the schools in each of the constituencies in a table, provide to Parliament so that we can see where these funds have gone to. It's unfortunate that some of us are heavily building on the little CDF we have, while others are complemented heavily by your funding through the ministry.
As opposed to populating a school with sons of others. How can one school manage 4,000 teachers. How can a principal of a school manage 4,000 students and few teachers, and another one is having empty classrooms and idle teachers?
Number
Thank
5.
you. Next, we have Honorable Tonke.
Thank you, Madam DS. I want first of all to begin by thanking the CS and His Excellency the President for the capitation that went to schools. However, Bona CS, recently there was a directive that all the students who are going to grade 10 should just move to schools. And that has happened in most of the schools in Narok County. But now the question is, what will happen to these children because there is no capitation? What are you going to do immediately to ensure that the schools will run smoothly because there are no finances that have been allocated to those students? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Honorable Nabi.
Thank you. Waziri. Chair, I need your protection.
Order, members. Order. Order. Yes, Wamboka, what is your point of order? Nabi, hold.
Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Education interacts with the Minister all the time, every other time, including today morning. They were with him. Why are they coming now to take positions, to ask questions that they normally ask the Minister? In fact, they should be helping the Minister to respond to us on some of these issues. Because a lot of what members are raising here, including what Honorable Baya said about funding, it is done by the Committee of Education. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. They should spare us.
Order, members.
Chair, can I?
Order. Point made. Everybody will have an opportunity. Order. Order, members. Nabi, proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I think I represent the people of Lugari.
Don't defend yourself. Just proceed
Yes.
and ask your question.
Waziri, you created 3 pathways from grade 10. Unfortunately, one pathway, which is creative arts and sports, is a preserve of the C1s. What are you going to do to ensure that schools in rural areas, including those of my constituency, whose students are interested in sports and creative art pathway, will access that education in schools that are not C1? So, section B of that question is,
Only one question.
the C1 school, like Pangani, which has admitted over 4,000 grade 10 students without requisite teachers for STEM, and facilities like the laboratory. How are you going to ensure that learning goes on? Or are we just going to transit 100% without requisite curriculum delivery?
Number 7.
That's Honorable Bishi.
Thank you. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza nimshukuru waziri kwa maelezo yake kuhusiana na mambo ya elimu. Na mimi niseme tatizo moja nyeti kabisa ambalo tuko nalo ni tatizo la kulipia walimu ambao wako under BOM. Nauliza ministry iko na mikakati gani ya kusaidia kulipa hawa walimu wa BOM? Naangalia shule moja ya kwangu ambayo inaitwa Mrima Secondary School. Iko na walimu 22. Out of 22, 17 wote ni BOM. Only 5 in TSC. Niko na shule inaitwa Mwaima Secondary School. Out of 20 teachers, only 3 are under TSC. Wengine wote ni BOM. And so many schools in Coast Region. And at least in my constituency, karibu zote, you don't even get half under TSC. Wote wako hivyo. Na pia unapata shule nzima hakuna STEM teachers. Na ukiangalia katika statistics zako utaona wanafunzi wengi wa kutoka pwani wengi hawajajifunza ama hawajafaulu katika STEM subjects. And this is because the teachers are not there. Hakuna walimu wa STEM. Unapata ni walimu tu wengine wa masomo mengine wanajilazimisha kufundisha haya masomo ya STEM. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni shida kubwa sana ambayo lazima tuiangalie. Shida nyingine ni mambo ya uniform. Tunabadilisha uniform kulingana na zile grade. Wazazi wanakosa kupeleka watoto because of uniform and the books. The same grade mtoto mmoja amesoma, ikija tena hii the same grade mnabadilisha vitabu. Vitabu vinakuwa vingine. Mtoto hawezi kusema mzazi huyu amemaliza, huyu atasomea vitabu vya mwenzake. Ikienda hiyo grade tena mmebadilisha vitabu. You keep on changing the books. The parents are tired. We are also tired buying the books for the parents, for the student. Tumechoka. If we really want to ensure our student go to school, hizi changamoto lazima tuondoe waziri. Asante sana.
Number 8.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is, when Waziri was talking about school fees, he said that even with the classification, the fees has not changed. That can only mean one thing, Waziri, that the ministry knows the fees that are supposed to be paid for the different clusters. So Waziri, I would like you to give us this list today. You tell us for C1, this is the fees. For C2, this is the fees. Because if you go home, every school is charging a different kind of fees. Unakuta hii ni 20,000, hii ni 30, hii ni 40. Some schools are even 80,000. So we don't know, when you say the fees has not changed, according to you, what is the fees? Ili nijue leo nikienda nitaambia mwalimu wewe shule yako inafaa kulipisha 20,000. Wewe yako inafaa kulipisha 5,000. Because, Speaker, if you go to these schools, it's like capitation never reaches there. It's like these schools learn on what the parents pay and what CDF and the bursaries pay. Without CDF and bursaries, the teacher starts calling you, we have no food, we have nothing. So we wonder, where does this capitation go that we normally talk about, that you have paid 12,000 per student? If you pay 12,000 for a student in a day secondary school, that student should not even pay any other fees. Day secondary should be free. If 20,000 went for every student in a day secondary school, then the same secondary where 12,000 was paid, the parent is supposed to pay other fees, bursary will pay other fees. Finally, that day secondary is 30,000 per year.
Thank you.
There is Honorable Kitur, Gasero and then Kitur.
Number 9.
Thank you very much. My name is Bernard Kitur, MP for Nandi Hills. My question goes to the equity and furtherance of the cost of schooling in terms of the issue of uniform. I want to ask you, Waziri, have you ever considered that we have one standard uniform for all schools so that we don't have the challenges of those children, like those ones that we are asking them to go back to school when they don't have fees, but one of the most expensive thing is the uniform. What are you doing about this in regard to all the public schools having one standard uniform? Secondly, you mentioned Kuwait Fund.
Members, I told you to ask one question each. Now you say secondly.
No, it's just a clarification. I just wanted to get Speaker. Let me just ask you that. He mentioned about Kuwait Fund that is assisting schools in Nyamira and Kisii. And I wanted to find out, some of these funds come by virtue of being a CS and coming from that region, or what was the basis that was used that it only covered one region? Thank you.
Number 10.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm Honorable Ken Chonga, MP Kilifi South. Speaker, bear with me. My question is in two parts. Very brief. Very, very brief. Speaker, without taking a rider to what Honorable Owen has asked, one of the reasons why we have serious shortages in schools is the issue related to hardship allowance. Areas where bordering hardship allowance have suffered massive transfers from one area to areas which hardship allowance. My area of my constituency is a living example about this. I remember I brought a petition in the previous parliament, and I've been following up this petition to get to know what the ministry is doing to harmonize the issue of hardship allowance. But to date, Mr. Speaker, nothing has come forth from the ministry. I remember last year, in the month of November, there was a retreat in Kilifi, and this question was asked. Kilifi South is understaffed by over 50%, and this is the reason which is affecting that. How and when soon is this issue going to be addressed? Part 2 is, why are all the schools in Kilifi South lacking deputy principals, and even for those schools which have boarding schools for girls, have no boarding teachers, specifically, I don't know how you call them, women, ladies, boarding teachers, yet ladies are to be attended by their fellow ladies. Thank you.
And I think we had forgotten Honorable Gaisero. You can go now. You're the last one.
Sorry?
No, not you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS, for me, I'll be very specific on the...
Say your name, then ask your question.
My name is Gisairo, Member of Parliament, Kitutu Masaba. CS, I'll be very specific on the placement. What criteria was being used to do the placement of grade 10? What was the level of access by your officers into that system? Because we are all aware of some of the officers who were receiving lists and kept making the system go dark. And when it gets live, there were changes in mostly C1 schools. Some of the names we have, we can't name them here because of the setting of this meeting. But what measures are you taking to ensure that this is not repeated? This is not repeated because this was the most absurd placement system for our children into grade 10. Your officers messed it up, your officers abused it, and what measures are you taking to ensure this does not happen again?
Minister, go to the podium and answer those 11 questions.
Thank you, members, for those very insightful questions. I'll start with Honorable Mbui's question on the cost of educating a child in Kenya. First, let me start by saying that the amount that we indicated as capitation for the government that is giving the 1,540, the 15,000, and the 22,000 was arrived at after a task force was established,
and they did an analysis and came up with those figures. Having said that, Honorable Mbwe, the simple answer to your question is that we actually, as a country, do not know how much it costs to educate a child from grade 1 all the way to university. And I'll explain to you the reason, and members, since we are all here as leaders, it is good to interrogate these things. For example, government gives capitation, which is tuition fees, tuition of 1,420. CDF gives bursaries. County governments give bursaries. We are called to Harambes and we donate to that same number of children. There are other people, private sector, who also contribute. So no analysis, no actual analysis has been done to determine what is the actual cost. So what we are doing as a ministry currently, as we speak, through the development of the new KEMIS system, we are creating a module which will give all our learners a unique number from grade 1, from actually ECD, all the way to the universities. So that if you are supporting a child, any child, whether you are CDF, whether you are county, whether you are private sector, that amount has to be allocated to that child in that number, so that we can have a discussion about what is the total amount of money that we are putting in the sector, other than the 702 billion that the government is giving, which is at 28%. Then we can come up with an actual amount that we can say, this is what it costs to educate a child, to confirm whether, if we put all these funds in one basket, we would then be able to meet the requirement of Article 53 on free and compulsory education across the board, including issues relating to uniforms and other expenses. We have had a challenge, and you'll agree with me. This analysis has never been done. Nobody has done it. It hasn't been done. It is something that as a country today, because of the challenges that we are having, we need to face it and we need to do it. We have to be courageous about it so that we have a clear picture. Because we have an X number of students, X number of children, we need to be able to know how much money is allocated to each of those children. Question number 2.
Allow him to proceed first, then you can raise your issues.
On the issue of the regulations...
Allow him to proceed first. When we take the second round of questions, I'll give you a priority. So just write down. Just write it down. We'll proceed that way, or else we'll not make progress. Proceed, Waziri.
On the issue of the regulations that we normally issue as circulars,
write it down, I'll give you a chance.
We are reducing now those into a gazette notice, but also we are undertaking the amendment of the Basic Education Act, where a lot of these issues are going to be addressed through the Act and through the regulations that will be coming to you. Number 2.
Honorable members, kindly keep your voices down so that we've already asked the questions to the minister. If everybody gives a point of order. Okay, then I'll have one point of order. Okay, Honorable Ochieng, what's your point of order?
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the question asked by the Honorable Mbui is everything you would want to know in this country about education. This question, the answer to that question is everything about school fees. So the minister cannot tell us he doesn't know how much a kid costs to teach in this country. So on what basis do they give capitation for primary, for secondary? What basis are they giving us school fees for university? Madam Speaker, if we don't know how much a kid costs to teach, how do you budget? And number two, then who does the minister expect to do that analysis? Whom does he expect to do that actual science thing? It's a question that is mishandled, and it wrecks, in my opinion, of lack of appreciation of what it's supposed to do. It has to be handled the right manner.
Okay, thank you, honorable members. The good thing is the minister has confirmed, he has said he doesn't know. So what we should be doing in the follow-up questions is giving him a time frame to present that before the committee. But he doesn't know. He can't guess.
Order, members, order. 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 Ocheng has made a point. Minister, you have heard. Now proceed to answer.
Thank you.
Order. Sirma, take your seat.
I've heard you. Thank you.
Take your seat. Take your seat, member.
Honorable Bias question on the issue relating to distribution of...
Waziri, yes. Order, members, you have your technical team here. Yes. You are at liberty to ask them to assist you, give you the numbers, the figures, so that you satisfy the House. And honorable members, it will be decent to listen. Even when the answer falls short of your expectations, we have another round to ask questions. Order. Go on, Waziri.
So on the question of distribution of the teachers and infrastructure to areas that have been left behind, so to speak, as a ministry, we are focused on doing affirmative action to ensure that these areas are provided for, and also the question of rationalization of the resources that we have and the teachers that we have, so that we can redistribute the teachers to various schools that do not have them. We have a rationalization issue, and this is being done by TSC. We've had discussion with them to see in schools that do not have teachers, and we have teachers in another area where we have more, that distribution needs to be done so that no place is left behind. In terms of ensuring that we provide the list of the infrastructure that has been distributed, that will be submitted to you so that each person can see what has been allocated to where, from when to when. So we'll provide, didn't come with it, we'll provide that particular list. Honorable Patrol's question on the number of students that we can cap on the number of schools where these students select. The policy of government is that students select the schools that they would like to go to. So what happens is, in this particular transition that we did, students were allowed to select 3 schools from each category. So they were allowed to select 3 schools from C1, 3 schools from C2, 3 schools from C3, and 3 schools from C4. Now, the reason why some of the schools received more students is because they did not have Form 2s. So they were allowed to increase the capacity a little bit because they had an extra classroom. That's why some of the schools who had indicated that they have, for example, capacity for 500 were allowed to take an extra 200 because that capacity is available in those schools. So what is going to happen is, once we complete this exercise on Friday, we are going to look at the exit report on the numbers. How many students have gone to C1, how many have gone to C2, how many have gone to C3 completely and C4, and determine the schools, for example, that did not get the numbers. Then we'll have a discussion on what we are going to have to do with those schools. But we'll only be able to reach that decision once we have the exit report of the final placement. That is the same question, question 5, to Honorable Tonkei's question. All the students that are in Narok did not get capitation. It is not true. The capitation that goes to school is based on the number that is submitted by the schools. So what was happening, and maybe as an explanation, is that A request is
Let him finish his sentence and I'll give you a chance. Honorable Tonke, he hasn't completed answering you. Let him finish. Then you can, I'll give you a chance to ask.
So I was explaining that in senior school, 22,000 shillings is sent to schools for the students. That money is sent as 50% in term 1. As a policy, it is not.
Honorable Tonge, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, I did not say that the CS did not send money. Honorable CS, understand my question. In fact, I began by complimenting you for the good work of dispersing all the capitation to schools. The question was, there was a directive from the president that all the grade 10 students report to schools. And my question was, what are you doing to ensure that the capitation that now will be sent to schools is sent so that those students can learn comfortably? That was the question, Bwana CS. I wasn't talking about the disbursement of funds. I know the funds were already dispersed, and I said, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So you are misleading by saying that I have...
I got you, I got the question. The students that were directed to go to school without school fees and uniforms were the 8% that were remaining, because 92% had already reported. So what is going to happen, we've directed our officers to collect the data as to where these learners reported, so that we can then incorporate their numbers into the next release of the funds. Yes, thank you. Now, the 3 pathways that have been created for grade 10, what is happening is the categorization of the schools were done on the capacity of what they can offer in terms of the 3 pathways. There are C4 schools who have the capacity to offer the sports section or the sports pathway, and that is how the students were placed into those particular institutions. Because we were placing students based on the cluster of what they have performed, and that's why you notice that only 10% are doing that pathway. So the schools that they have been placed are schools that have been determined to have that capacity, but we are continuing to improve the infrastructure as we receive resources to ensure that these pathways are provided for through the available infrastructure, so that the students are learning in an environment that is conducive. To Honorable number, I think I'm in number 5. Number 7, Honorable Mishi's question. Here it is. The problem of paying BOM teachers. As I've indicated, there is a shortage of teachers even as we speak. The government has done 100,000 teachers as of this year, and we are going to do another 16,000 teachers on the year 2026-2027 to cover those shortages. And we've agreed with TSC that they would need to reallocate and ensure that we have enough teachers in some of the schools that are lacking, so that there's fair distribution. And I've talked about rationalization. As you will see, once we have the exit report that I've indicated, some schools will not be having grade 10 students, and they'll not be having from 2 students. So they'll be having only Form 3 and Form 4. So TSC would now sit and reallocate those teachers to the schools that do not have enough teachers, as we continue to cover that gap, so that eventually we have a fair distribution of the teachers across the country. I indicated also that fees has not changed. Bwana Sugut, can you give the the list. C1, how much, C2, like that of that fees, because you've got it there. The actual fees that is payable.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Speaker. Now, for the fees is in 2 levels. The capitation by government is 22,244, which is uniform in all schools. Yeah? That is secondary schools.
Proceed and give the figures, then members can question it. So let's allow him to give the figures and then we can question. We can interrogate.
So the figures for secondary schools, the capitation by government is 22,244 for all the schools. What is payable by parents is boarding fee. And the boarding fee in the C1 schools is 53,535 per year. In the rest of the boarding schools, it is 40,435. Thank you, sir.
So C4, there is no fees that is paid, and government does not pay for food. That is the amount that sometimes the principals charge. On the question of having a standard uniform across the country, this question was discussed in 2018, and the ministry did propose that perhaps it is time that we had a standard uniform for every school across the country with just a badge differentiating the schools. But this was shot down by the public because they indicated that school uniforms are identities of the schools. So as a ministry, we are still working on a policy, and that needs to be actually in the law, that the school uniforms are bought from wherever the parents want to buy them, not from indicated or specific places directed by the principals. And in that amendment that we are suggesting in the Basic Education Act, which is coming to you, we are requesting that that becomes a law and a regulation, because it has become very difficult to implement that regulation or that circular using administrative means, because we don't get enough information from the ground. Honorable Chonga's question on hardship allowance. Hardship allowance is designated across the country. Hardship areas, not allowance, sorry. Hardship areas is designated across the country by the Ministry of Public Service, and that is what we use to indicate as a ministry which areas are designated as hardship areas. But I know that there is discussions going on the harmonization of all the hardship areas across the country, and perhaps that regulation is also coming to you through the regulations committee to ensure that at least each and every part of the country that has hardship is designated as such, and everybody in government would be able to utilize that. The question of the deputy principals, I will liaise with the TSC to find out why in Kilifi South the principals have not been sent there, or they have not been deployed. The placement criteria by Honorable Gishairo that we used, at the time we allowed the principals to come and support the placement. We had already done 88% of the placement through the chemist module system that we were using. But there was a hue and cry on the ground that the principals were saying we also need to be involved in participating in the revision. So the 12% portion, we allowed the ministry to participate or to work with the principals in the placement of those students. The system was not interfered with. As far as I know, it was being managed from the ministry. Thank you.
So, honorable members, what has come out clearly, Waziri is yourself and the Committee on Education, Honorable Meli. What is outstanding, members want a list of the distribution of the teachers per county, or is it per constituency? They've also asked that they want to have the exit report on student distribution, why some schools have more students, others don't have students. They also would want to know the clarification on the placement systems, and then followed by the law on uniforms. So those are things that you can work on when the session starts, so that you can report to the House for members to know, so that you can report to the House. And of course also the report on the redesignation of hardship areas. Yeah? So those are items that your committee can follow up.
Chair, I think I don't want to respond to those issues.
No, you're not responding.
I don't
it's
want to
homework for your committee.
Yes, let me just say this, members. 1 minute only. Members, you remember the issue of hardship was brought to the floor of the House. We discussed it extensively, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary himself did talk on it. I think it's an issue that needs to be handled further and even be taken back by the public service, so that we have a clear policy by the government. Because if we don't have a clear policy, we'll be repeating the same questions year in, year out. One thing which I also want to talk about is the issue of infrastructure. This committee, this House, had agreed that let infrastructure move to the CDF, so that it is evenly distributed across. But I don't know why, at some point, we had done very well, and some point now it is back in the ministry. I think we need to make a proposal that no infrastructure funds remain in the ministry. It should come to the floor and be distributed equally.
Okay, let's go to the next.
Order, members, order. We had said we stop at 11, but we will take another round. I know it's